So imagine if you want to swim and you don't know how to swim. You're pushed into the water, you're thrown into the water, you don't know how you're going to control your limbs, how you're going to control your body. So eventually you're going to drown into the water, isn't it? So that is what it's like to speak in English without knowing grammar. Each sentences are just a messy mountains of words. So if you know grammar, if you know only the grammar in moderation, that's really going to help you in speaking English. And correct grammar, actually it gives you kind of confidence to speak English, correctly. And if you know that whatever you are uttering, it's correct, believe me, you can speak with more confidence without less stopping on some particular words and sentences. So that is why grammar is needed for speaking English, but in moderation. In moderation, in every video I say that you need to learn grammar in moderation. It means that few things are there which are essential for learning grammar. Those are parts of speech and your tenses, modals and your active passive voice. So I have already uploaded my videos in parts of speech beginning with noun. So we have discussed what is a kind of noun and what is a noun, what is a kind of noun and how does a noun works in a sentence. Now today we'll discuss noun, function, case and relation. How does a noun works in a sentence, that we'll know. And first of all, let's take few things about noun. Let's learn few things about noun. That noun works in a 5-way in a sentence. First of all, it works nominative, or you can say as a subject of a verb. Second, it works objective or accusative or dative. So you can call it by 2 more names. And third, it's going to be work like possessive. And fourth one is vocative. Okay, now let's find out how does noun works in a sentence as a nominative case. Nominative, as it searches from its very name, that nominative means it means subjective form of a noun. It always comes in the beginning of a sentence and it is the subject of the verb. Okay, so noun, a fixed place of noun is there in the sentence. It always comes in the beginning of a sentence, and a sentence can be started with a noun only or a pronoun. But today, as we are talking about nouns, so we'll talk about noun only. Just remember one thing, that noun, it always comes as a subject of a verb in a sentence. So it is called noun in a nominative case. Like if we say Tom is a lawyer. So what we see here, that Tom, it came as a subject to a verb in the beginning of a sentence, working as a nominative one. Okay, so that is why noun always comes in the starting of a sentence doing the work of a subject, and it can be subject of a verb. Okay, now first of all, let's take some example of nominative case. If we say that time is precious. If we say time is precious, here we see that time is the subject of a verb, is. And if you want to find out that how can we identify the nominative case noun, so what we'll do, that with a verb we can ask some question, what and who. And in return, if you are getting the answer, the word, that is the word, the subject of the nominative case. So if we ask the question what is precious? Answer would be time is precious. In the same way, if we say that Tom is a lawyer, the question would be who is a lawyer? Answer would be Tom is a lawyer. Okay, now let's move to a objective case. When a noun works as an object to a verb, placing after the verb, the place of noun comes just after the verb, working as an object. In any sentence, if some action is done or performed, it is called verb. It would be called noun in an objective case. and the doer of the action is called subject, and something which is getting affected by the action of the subject is called an object. In any sentence, if some action is done or performed, it is called verb. These objects can be a noun, pronoun, or a phrase. Phrase is collection of some words, without verb. So we have phrases, but actually in phrase we don't have any verb or subject. Like if we say on the table, at the bench, at the gate, in the room, these are called, phrases. Just as we take an example that Tom killed a goat. So in this sentence we find that Tom is the doer of the action, and then the action and killing is Tom killed a goat. So killed is the action, it's some action is happening, so it is it's verb, and goat is goat is getting affected by the action of killing. So goats is here, we find that it is an object. Okay, now there are two kinds of object that will, so they are direct object and indirect object. Usually we see that direct object is a thing and indirect object is always a person. So if I say that Tom gave me a gift, so in this sentence we find that Tom is the subject and Tom gift is direct object and me is indirect object. Okay, now indirect object is a noun, phrase or pronoun that receive the action of a verb directly, and it answer the question what, who and whom. Okay, now if we say that Tom threw pebbles in the pond, in this sentence what did Tom threw? If we ask the question what did Tom threw, answer comes pebbles. So pebbles is the direct object, and direct object always it is it's some person, it's some thing, not person. Now if a sentence has a direct object, it may or may not have an indirect object. Okay, if I answer the question, this is the sentence, I answered the question. Now I is subject, answer is verb, and the question is object. So what did I answer? The question. Okay, I got the prize. What did I get? Answer is the prize. So question is I got the prize. What did I get? The prize. This is the answer. So in this example we don't find any indirect object in it, and indirect object is noun, pronoun or phrase or pronoun to whom or for whom the action is done. It receives the action through the direct object and not directly. Okay, indirect object can also be called dative case. You can also call it dative case, as we see that so noun is an accusative case when after the preposition noun comes, it becomes noun in the accusative case. But see that indirect object, it answer the question at whom, to whom or for whom, and there can be no indirect object without a direct object. Okay, so like if we say he offered a proposal to Ram, so what we see here that he is the subject, offer is verb. He offered a proposal to Ram, it means he is subject, offer is verb, and offer a proposal. A proposal is direct object because it is a lifeless thing, and to Ram is indirect object. So what do we see that first we have subject, then verb, then we have direct object, and then we have indirect object. Now the place can be changed also. We can also say he offered Ram a proposal. So if we say he offered Ram a proposal, we see the first the subject comes, then offer verb comes, then indirect object come, and then the direct object come. So generally we put indirect object and then we put direct object. But if we change the the position of preposition is placed just before the indirect object. So just remember this thing. So when a noun shows some positions or ownership or authorship, so it's a kind of noun of possessive case. Okay, like if we say Mr. Tom's house, so here we see that this house belonged to Mr. Tom. Okay, so what do? That after the subject we write an apostrophe s, and then we write the noun which is of possessive case. And like we can also say men's parlor. Okay, now see, now if we say Shakespeare's play, or if we say mother's love, or if we say the president's speech, so what do we find here? We are writing the subject, and then we are writing apostrophe s and that particular noun which it poses. And one more thing I would like to say, we don't write apostrophe s with lifeless objects. So just keep this thing in mind. Okay, now let's see how can we form the possessive case. If noun is singular, what we do that we put apostrophe s after it to make it possessive. Like we can say the boys' books or the king's crown. And now what happens when noun is plural and it is ending with the letter s, we don't need s after it. After apostrophe s we don't put any s after it. Rather what we do that we only write apostrophe s to make it plural. Like if we say boys' school or girls' school or horses' tails. So what we are doing here? Already we find that verb noun is plural and it's having s after it. So that's why we are only putting an apostrophe s to make it plural. Make it possessive case. Some nouns are there which doesn't end with s, though they are plural, but they are not ending with s letter. So what we do that we just write apostrophe s after those noun which are plural but are not ending with us, to show the possession. Like we can call men's club or children's books. And sometimes it's happened that noun consists of several words, several words are there. Then what we do, the possessive sign is attached only to the last word. Okay, it can be a title. Like if we say the king of Bhutan's visit, so king of Bhutan, so after Bhutan we are putting an apostrophe s to show the possession of the king. And if we say Kavi Guru Rabindranath Tagore's book, so Kavi Guru Rabindranath Tagore's, so after Tagore we are putting an apostrophe s to make it show it possession to that book. So Kavi Guru Rabindranath Tagore's book. Or we can say the Prime Minister Morris's speech, the Prime Minister of Morris's speech. So what do we see that the Prime Minister of Mauritius, so after Mauritius we are putting apostrophe s and then we are writing as speech. So just now I told you that possessive case can be used only with the living things like the governor's bodyguard or the lion's mane or Shakespeare's drama. But if some lifeless objects are there, we don't use apostrophe s. Rather what we do that we can write it like this, that leg of the table or the cover of the books or roof of the house. But remember one more thing that personified, if some personified object is there, if some lifeless object is is taken as personified things, we can use apostrophe s after it. Like we can say India's heroes or nature's laws or fortune's favorite or duty's calls or death's door. These type of things we can use. Now possessive is also used with some noun denoting time, space or weight also. Like we can say a day's march, a week's holiday, a year's time, or a stone's throw, sometimes a foot's length, a pound's weight, etc. Now there are two more works of a noun. That is, first, to be a noun in apposition, and second is to be a complement of a verb. So let's discuss first the complement of a verb. Yeah, what is a complement? Complements is always needed to complete the meaning of a sentence, and complement always follows a linking verb. A linking verb always links the subject with a complement. Common linking verbs are, first you understand what is how does a complement is made, and then I'll give you the example of complement. Now common linking verbs are, it can be to be form like is, am, are, was, were, is being, was being, have been, has been, appear, become, seems. Okay, so these verbs need some words or noun to complete their meaning. Like if we say Tom is a farmer, so in this sentence we see that Tom is a noun and is a farmer. So is connecting Tom with a farmer, and we also see that Tom and farmer, they are both the same person. So if we don't use complement, subject remains incomplete. If we say Tom is, and we are not using the word farmer, we are not putting the word farmer, it remains incomplete. So that is why, complement always takes a noun, after it, and linking verb, as I told you, linking verb, those linking verbs, which are starting from to be verb and so many other verbs also, they take, another word that can be noun or pronoun or some phrase to be a complement to complete the meaning of a sentence. Okay, so if we say that Ravi is a lawyer, so in this sentence we see that Ravi is the subject and is a lawyer. So this verb is connecting Ravi with lawyer. So we find that it is called subjective complement because Ravi and lawyer are the So here we see that Ravi and lawyer is the same person, and is verb is connecting both Ravi and lawyer. As Ravi and lawyer the same person, so it can be called subjective complement because Ravi and lawyer both are the same person. So if we say they made Tom a captain, so here we see they is subject, made is verb, Tom is object, they made Tom a captain. So what do we see here? A captain is, it's a complement of the object Tom. Understand? I'm repeating this thing again. They made Tom a captain. So if we say they made Tom a captain, they is subject, made is verb, and some action is going on. So that is why Tom is an object. It's not complement. And Tom, if we write they made Tom only, so our meaning is not complete until we write a captain. So that is why a captain, this word, this noun is completing the meaning of Tom. So that is why it is called, objective complement, because it's telling something about the object Tom. Okay. Now let's come to the last work of noun, that is noun in apposition. So when one noun follows another to describe it, the noun which follows is said to be in opposition to the noun which comes before it. Okay, like I'm giving you an example. If I take in two sentences, one sentence, let's not take two sentences. If I take one sentence like Ravi, the monitor, has completed this work. So Ravi and monitor. So here we see that Ravi is the subject and noun, and the monitor is also the same person, the Ravi. So that is why the monitor is said to be in opposition to the noun Ravi, and that is why we have kept it just after Ravi by putting a comma. So hope you like my videos. I'm coming soon with next parts of speech, that is pronoun. Thank you so much.